My first real traffic stop, on a rain-slicked suburban street, quickly plunged me into a night where the rules vanished, and I had to choose between my badge and the man who taught me how to wear it. The rain was coming down in sheets, turning the quiet suburban streets of Northwood into a slick, black mirror. It was the kind of night that felt like it was holding its breath, the kind where bad things happen in the sleepy hours just before dawn. I was 6 months out of the academy, still so green I practically photosynthesized. My FTO, Sergeant Evans, had signed off on me a month ago, but I could still hear his gravelly voice in my head with every move I made. Confidence, kid. Hesitation gets you killed, and so does sloppy procedure. That's why I lit him up. The car was a ghost from another era, a cherry red 1970s muscle car, maybe a Charger or a Challenger. It rumbled with a low, predatory growl that was completely out of place among the rows of minivans and sensible sedans. It wasn't speeding, but it rolled through the stop sign at the corner of Elm and Patterson like it was a suggestion, not a law. A slow, deliberate, almost arrogant roll. My heart hammered against my ribs, a familiar drumbeat of adrenaline and nerves. This was it, a real stop. Not some busted taillight on a soccer mom's SUV. This felt different. "Dispatch, this is 3 Adam 15, I spoke into my shoulder mic, my voice steadier than my hands. "Show me on a traffic stop. Corner of Elm and Patterson. Red two-door, classic model. License plate reads, Chief 1. A beat of silence from the other end. "Copy that. 3 Adam 15. Chief 1. Any occupants visible?" "Just the driver. Dispatch. Lone male. 10-4. I took a deep breath, the damp air smelling of wet asphalt and cut grass. I did everything by the book. Angled the patrol car, spotlights painting the Charger in harsh white light, highlighting every raindrop that beaded on its waxed finish. I unclipped my seatbelt, hand resting on the butt of my Glock as I exited the vehicle, a habit drilled into me until it was muscle memory. My boots squeaked on the pavement as I approached the driver's side door. The window was tinted, not illegally dark, but enough to obscure the driver into a vague silhouette. My flashlight beam cut through the gloom, and I kept it trained on the driver's side mirror, watching for any sudden movements. The window hummed down slowly, revealing a man in his mid-50s. He had a strong jaw, short-cropped gray hair, and eyes that seemed to see right through the rain, the flashlight beam, and the cheap polyester of my uniform. He wasn't angry. He wasn't scared. He just looked patient. He was wearing a simple gray polo shirt, nothing that screamed trouble. "Good evening, sir," I said, my voice coming out crisp and professional. I was proud of that. "Officer Miller with the Northwood Police Department. The reason I pulled you over tonight is that you failed to come to a complete stop at the stop sign back there." The man didn't say anything for a moment. He just looked at me, a faint, unreadable smile playing on his lips. It was unnerving. I dealt with screamers, criers, and liars. I hadn't dealt with this calm, piercing silence. "License and registration, please," I continued, my training taking over. He nodded slowly, still not breaking eye contact. "You're new, aren't you, son?" His voice was deep, calm, and carried an authority that had nothing to do with volume. My back stiffened. "Sir, I need to see your license and registration, please." I put a little more steel in my tone this time. Procedure is procedure. Sergeant Evans always said respect is earned, but the law is the law for everyone, no exceptions. The man sighed, a soft sound that was almost lost in the drumming of the rain on the car roof. He reached into his jacket, and every nerve in my body screamed. My hand tightened on my sidearm. I saw the movement in slow motion, the hand disappearing into the dark fabric, the slight rustle of cloth. But he didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a black leather wallet. He didn't open it to the clear plastic sleeve where a driver's license would be. Instead, he flipped it open to the other side. Pinned to the leather was a badge. Not a silver officer's badge like the one on my chest. It was a brilliant, gleaming gold shield. The insignia was one I'd seen every single day, framed in a picture on the wall of the briefing room. My blood ran cold. The air caught in my lungs. I felt the color drain from my face as I stared at the badge, and then at the name engraved beneath it. The man leaned forward slightly, his calm eyes locking onto mine. "You might want to take a closer look at that name, Officer Miller," he said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous murmur. "And then you're going to tell me exactly why you felt the need to pull over your own police captain." My mouth went dry. For a few seconds all I could hear was the frantic thumping of my own heart and the steady drumming of the rain. The gold shield seemed to burn in the beam of my flashlight. A tiny star of pure, career-ending dread. Captain Hayes. The man was a legend in the department, a 30-year veteran who came up when policing was all guts and instinct. He was a ghost in the station, a name on a door, a presence you felt but rarely saw, and I, the 6-month rookie, had just pulled him over for a California stop. Sir. Captain Hayes, I stammered, the words sticking to my tongue like peanut butter. My apologies, I didn't recognize the vehicle. My flashlight beam wavered, and I quickly lowered it. "You didn't recognize the plate, Miller?" he asked, his voice dangerously soft. It was worse than yelling. It was the calm before a hurricane. "Chief 1. What did you think it stood for? The head of the local Rotary Club?" I swallowed hard, trying to regain some semblance of composure. My training kicked in, a desperate life raft in a sea of humiliation. Sergeant Evans' voice echoed in my head. "Never apologize for doing your job. Just state the facts." "No, sir," I said, my voice gaining a fraction of its lost strength. "I saw the plate, but the reason for the stop was the moving violation. You failed to come to a complete stop at the intersection of Elm and Patterson." There it was. I'd said it. I had officially accused the captain of the Northwood Police Department of breaking the law to his face. I braced myself for the explosion, for the order to turn in my badge and go home. But it didn't come. Captain Hayes just stared at me for a long, agonizing moment. The faint smile on his lips disappeared, replaced by a look of intense, unreadable scrutiny. He was sizing me up, dissecting me with those steel-gray eyes. Then he did something I didn't expect. He gave a short, sharp nod. "All right, Miller," he said, flipping his wallet shut and putting it back inside his jacket. "Get back in your car." Relief washed over me so intensely my knees felt weak. He was letting me go. I had survived. "Yes, sir. Have a good night, Captain." I started to back away, eager to retreat to the safety of my patrol car and never speak of this again. "You're not going anywhere," he called after me, his voice sharp as broken glass. I froze, one hand on the rain-slick trunk of his Charger. "Get in your unit and fall in behind me. Kill your lights, and not a word over the radio unless I tell you to. Is that understood?" "Sir?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. "Is that understood?" he repeated, enunciating each word with chilling precision. "Yes, sir. Understood," I managed, my mind reeling. This was infinitely worse than being yelled at. I scrambled back to my car, my hands shaking as I got behind the wheel. I clicked off the overheads, plunging the street back into near darkness. I watched as the Charger's taillights flared to life, and it pulled away from the curb, not with the arrogance of before, but with a new, urgent purpose. I fumbled with my radio. "Dispatch, 3 Adam 15. I'm, 10-8 from that traffic stop." A pause. 10-4, 3 Adam 15. You're clear." I took a deep breath and put the car in drive, following the muscle car through the labyrinth of sleeping suburban streets. We drove for 5 minutes in total silence, turning onto the old service road that led toward the abandoned Northwood Cannery. My mind was a whirlwind of questions. Was this a test? Some kind of bizarre, rookie hazing ritual? Was he leading me somewhere to fire me in private? Finally, he pulled over on the gravel shoulder, just shy of the cannery's rusted gates. He killed his engine, and his headlights vanished, leaving us in the oppressive darkness, with only the sound of rain on metal. A moment later, my passenger door opened, and Captain Hayes slid into the seat beside me, bringing the smell of wet wool and something else, something metallic and coppery. "Turn off the engine," he commanded. I obeyed instantly. The silence was absolute. He stared out the rain-streaked windshield at the dark, skeletal frame of the old building. "You know what we're doing here, Miller?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. "No, sir." He turned to look at me, and in the faint ambient light from a distant street lamp, I saw that his calm demeanor was gone. His face was a mask of grim tension, his jaw set like concrete. "2 hours ago, we got an anonymous tip. A meet was going down here tonight. Guns, maybe something bigger. My informant was supposed to be inside." He paused, his gaze boring into me. "He was one of ours, Miller, an undercover officer. He missed his last 2 check-ins." My blood turned to ice. This wasn't a test. This was real. Why are we here, sir? Just the 2 of us?" "Where's the tactical team?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Captain Hayes let out a breath that sounded like grinding stone, because the tip also said that someone on the inside was dirty. Someone on the tactical team might be the one who set him up. He reached down and opened a small duffel bag at his feet that I hadn't noticed before. He pulled out a tactical vest and a shotgun. "That traffic stop," he said, racking a shell into the chamber with a deafening clack-clack. "That by-the-book stop you made. It told me you've got guts, or you're an idiot. Tonight we're going to find out which." He handed me the vest. "Put this on. You're my backup." The tactical vest was heavy, smelling of sweat and old cordite. It felt impossibly real. My hands, which had been shaking minutes ago, were now strangely steady as I secured the Velcro straps. This wasn't training. There were no simulators, no instructors with red-tipped fake guns. This was real, and the man beside me, the almost mythical Captain Hayes, was treating me like I belonged here. "We go in through the loading bay on the east side," he said, his voice a low whisper that cut through the sound of the rain. "The lock is rusted through. I'll take point. You're my 6. Your job is simple. Watch my back and keep your mouth shut. If things go sideways, you find cover and you lay down fire. You do not break, you do not run. Got it?" "Got it, sir," I whispered back, my voice hoarse. He handed me a spare magazine for my Glock. It felt like a ton of bricks. We moved through the rain like wraiths, sticking to the shadows along the cannery's corrugated metal wall. The air was thick with the smell of decay and rust. True to his word, the loading bay door groaned open with a firm shove. Inside it was cavernous and dark, a maze of silent machinery and catwalks overhead. Water dripped from the ceiling, each drop echoing like a gunshot in the oppressive silence. We moved slowly, using the hulking shapes of old conveyor belts for cover. Up ahead, through a set of grimy office windows, a single bare bulb illuminated a room. We could hear voices, low and tense. Hayes held up a hand, signaling for me to stop. He crept forward, peering through the glass. He motioned for me to join him. My heart pounded against the vest as I looked. 3 men stood around a table covered in handguns and rifles. A 4th man was on his knees, head bowed, his face bruised and bloody. It was Detective Marks, the undercover officer. Standing over him, back to the window, was a 5th man. He was talking, his voice a familiar gravelly baritone that made the blood freeze in my veins. "And that's the last shipment. The captain's been sniffing around, but he's got no idea it's me feeding him bad intel." The man turned slightly, and the light caught his face. Sergeant Evans, my FTO, the man who taught me everything, the man whose voice was still a constant echo in my head. "Confidence, kid. Hesitation gets you killed." He was the dirty cop. Captain Hayes looked at me, his eyes asking a silent question. I saw a flicker of doubt in them, wondering if his rookie backup, trained by the very man they were here to arrest, was about to break. I just gave him a short, sharp nod. My world had just been turned upside down, but the mission was the same. Hayes didn't waste a second. He kicked the office door in with a deafening crash. "Police! Drop your weapons!" he roared, his shotgun leveled. For a heartbeat, everything was frozen chaos. Then the room erupted. One of the dealers went for his gun, and Hayes's shotgun boomed, the sound shaking the entire building. I moved on instinct, just as I was trained. My target was Evans. He had spun around, his face a mask of shock and fury, drawing his own service weapon. "Miller!" he barked, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Stand down, kid. This is department business." His words were a poisoned dart, designed to make me hesitate, to make me second-guess everything. And for a fraction of a second it almost worked. But then I saw him shift his aim from me toward the captain. Hesitation gets you killed. My trainer's own words sealed his fate. I didn't think. I reacted. 2 shots from my Glock. A perfect double tap, just like he'd taught me on the range. Not at his chest, not a kill shot. I aimed for his gun arm. The first round hit his shoulder, spinning him around. The second tore his weapon from his grasp. He screamed and collapsed against the wall, clutching his ruined arm. The other 2 dealers, seeing the odds, threw their hands in the air. It was over in less than 10 seconds. Later, as the real tactical team swarmed the cannery and paramedics tended to Detective Marks, Captain Hayes and I stood by my patrol car in the rain. The flashing blue and red lights painted our faces. I was still running on pure adrenaline, my body humming like a live wire. Hayes was quiet for a long time, just watching the scene. Finally, he turned to me. "You didn't hesitate, Miller," he said. It wasn't a question. "No, sir," I replied. "Sergeant Evans was a good teacher." A grim smile touched the captain's lips. "That he was. He taught you the procedure. Tonight you showed me you understood the principle behind it." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. "I wrote this while I was waiting for you to fall in behind me." He handed it to me. I unfolded it. It was a citation. A ticket for failure to stop at a stop sign, made out to him, Captain Frank Hayes. "Consider it your first official collar," he said, his steel-gray eyes locking with mine. "You did good work tonight, officer. Don't ever let anyone tell you that doing things by the book is the wrong way to go. Sometimes it's the only thing that separates us from them." He clapped a heavy hand on my shoulder, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the controlled chaos he had orchestrated, leaving me standing in the rain with my first ticket, my first real arrest, and the sudden, staggering realization that my career had just begun.